Fire Radio.
Hey everybody, it's Rob, National Fire Radio, with our first episode of our rebranding from the gospel. This is Frontline Mindset. I am very excited about this podcast tonight. I have Ernie Young with me. Ernie is a member of the Gunnnison Volunteer Fire Department in Colorado and also the Western Regional Sales Rep for Rosenbauer, USA. So I think this is going to be a pretty good conversation because I know we've met in person before. I feel like at some of the events, but like this is the first time I'm going to get to sit down and talk with you. For the audience, I kind of stalked Ernie out in a creepy way, but like I signed up for a webinar on wildland urban interface because it really is something that interests me in the fire service, and kind of saw you. So I looked up your I just Google searched your name. I saw your LinkedIn and I saw your Facebook, and that's when I found out that you're this active member of this volunteer fire department in probably one of the most diverse areas as far as responses go. And I don't want to steal this away from you, but like go ahead and jump right in here, Ernie. Introduce yourself and
So the cool thing is I really appreciate you stalking me. It's a real neat thing to be able to when you said, hey, I'd love to talk Gunnison Fire. I think I told you, let's talk it, because I'll talk Gunnison Fire all day long. I've been fortunate enough to be with this department for 30 years. In September was my anniversary date. So I've been able to take this really neat aspect of being part of a fire department that has, of course, had its growing pains and has started to do some really neat stuff, and then get into sales of fire apparatus. So that's kind of where my heart's been. I've been on the apparatus purchasing committees, back in the day, and to be able to just keep doing that and interact with departments all over the country has helped me to bring a lot more back to my department today. So it's just been a really neat path, and to be able to share, that's awesome. I appreciate it.
Ernie, when did you start? Like, how old were you when you started in Gunnison?
So I had been 27.
Okay.
And it was just one of those things, when you're talking about the small town, how do you get into it? I worked with somebody who was on the department. He always had these really neat stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with another gentleman who was on the department. Neat thing about this type of department is we've got a plethora of tradespeople that bring all kinds of different aspects into the department and make it work really well. But I was with one of our former firefighters who's now retired, Larry Martin, and we were on a job just outside of town, and his pager goes off, and he's called out for, it's just beginning of winter, there's a slide off, somebody's ejected, and I just happened to be with him. And watching that whole scene unfold and almost feeling a little helpless. I didn't have skills in that area or anything, so I'm watching this happen, and I had done first aid, and he sent me down real quick to check a pulse, all that kind of stuff, and it's like, man, how can I get better at this? And so, I started asking questions, and voila, here I am today. Hopefully I know a little more than I did back then.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a pretty cool approach to it, because it hooked you instantly.
Oh goodness, it was there, and it was just, I didn't realize that it was something I needed.
Yeah.
But it certainly turned out to be an incredible part of my life. I joke around and say I probably spent more time at that house than I had in my house.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about Gunnison Volunteer Fire Department, what the makeup is.
So we are a 40-member volunteer department. From the top down. Our chief is a volunteer chief, so is our assistant chief. They both happen to work within our municipalities and or taxing entities. One of the interesting things about our department is we have 2 taxing entities in one station. So we have a city of Gunnison. They purchase apparatus to operate within the city limits. And then we have a fire protection district, which does the same for the other 27,000 square miles that we operate in. So it's a very large district, primarily single station. So all our apparatus from both the city and the district are in one house. And they get along really well. Wasn't always the case. It used to be city calls, city trucks, district calls, district trucks, and the two shouldn't be crossed. But now, we've come along. Everybody gets along. We help each other out. So we take the truck that we think is appropriate for the call, which is a really neat thing. It really, really helps us out a lot. So, all right, good. I was going to say I must have got long-winded there. I saw the hook come out. But no, it's been a really interesting thing. And, being that we're 40 personnel, it really allows us to keep the coverage that we've looked for. I think we've been really fortunate in the fact that we've kept a really strong group of volunteers. Over time. I notice as I travel around, because the West region's pretty large area. Not all the volunteer departments are having that kind of success.
Yeah.
And I seem to think that that's a national thing. When I talk to a lot of people, they're either having to find a way to migrate towards some kind of a paid structure, or they're just running light. We've been really fortunate. I think one of the big driving factors here is we have a college. Okay. And, that's one of those things back when I first came on. Well, the college was the place that you went at 2 o'clock in the morning for the smells and bells when everybody came home from the bar. Now it's actually a resource for us. So we go and recruit, and we'll get a person for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years who's working towards their college degree. They have an interest possibly in the industry for the future, be it EMS or fire, or maybe they're just looking for something to do and it seems really cool. And once they get engaged with our department and the type of trainings and the plethora of different calls that they get to see, we either get them for sure for at least that amount of time, maybe a little longer. But we also drive a lot of people, I think, to go out and seek a larger professional department. And by professional, I mean paid. If you look on the side of our trucks, they say that we are professionally staffed by volunteers. And that's kind of the mindset that we've always taken, is regardless whether you're in a Gunnison, Colorado, or a New York City, when somebody needs help, they need a professional level of help. So that's how we've kind of attacked our training and our growth, is to be able to do that. And so we've been delivering some really solid firefighters out into the industry. I kind of joke and say that I'm looking for our check to be the farm team for a lot of other departments, because we're able to put out some pretty good people, I think.
I think it's a really, Jeremy talks about this a lot with his department in Franklin Lakes, and I know certainly some of the places that I've been involved with, we've turned out, I mean, even my home department in rural Sullivan County, there's a couple of us who have moved on to career positions, and there's a feather in the cap for the home department when that happens. And I'm not saying that that's the, end all be all, but like to know that you hook somebody into that profession and they sought it out professionally as their livelihood, and then like, I'm sure you have it in Gunnison, but the fact that, like I'll still go back and touch base with the people in Youngsville and be available for them if they need something. Because it's always like, you should always have a place to call home. And same thing I see with Jeremy's department in Franklin Lakes, the guys who are on the job come back to give back to the department. And it speaks about the organization.
It is. It's a really neat thing to get somebody to come back and jump in on training night. Mm-hmm. and kind of bring what they learned. The cool thing is when I'm traveling, I always try and make it a point to stop in and visit with some of our firefighters who are out there. A lot of them have migrated to the Pacific Northwest for some reason. But it's kind of, you get to see, your resume, if you will, out there working that came from someplace, and you hope that somewhere along the lines you gave them that little fire to go out and grow.
Yeah, well, and I think it's interesting because before looking at the website, 2,700 square miles, the Facebook page, there's an array of calls that you're doing, whether it's wildland interface, rescues, and I'm not talking just like stuff on the highway. Like you have some like wilderness of Colorado, and like I know that is not like, I mean, the satellite images had mountains that had snow tops on them. So, and I don't know if I'm looking at the wrong image or the wrong Gunnison here, but like there is a wider range, a wide array of call types, and you have to have a different. Oh, maybe not. You've got to get in that mindset that like, hey, when the pager goes off, like you really you've got to train yourself so you're ready for that.
Yeah, it's a lot different. Like, when I travel around, I talk to somebody from Department X, and they have a 4 mile response radius. Okay, they're in and out, and they run a different set of calls. Okay, they probably do more intense structure fire runs than we do for sure. It's just a different thing. I might be 30 minutes to on scene for a semi truck off the top of Monarch Pass, which is, a 300-foot plus drop off. Uh, and the pass itself is, 11,500 feet at the top. So it's different areas that we have to work in, when you're doing these low angle rescues of a driver pinned in a semi truck over the side of a mountain pass. Um,
And the start of that response, you can drive into a different weather system, and you can have a different weather
Absolutely.
system roll in on you too, which is another thing of like I didn't realize how dangerous just going for a walk could be.
Yeah, well, our station's just a little below 8,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So we start off pretty high. And, like I said, our mountain passes that have the main highway, which is also one of the primary hazardous materials routes through the state. Um, you start throwing a big snow squall into there, and inevitably you have drivers that traveling through don't have chains on their trucks because they drove in from California, things like that. So, and we can go from that. It's 45 degrees and fairly nice, and by the time we get on scene, there's 4 inches of snow and it's a blizzard. So it's always being prepared, having your beanie stuck in your gear, and just having those things almost year round that we can run in the snow. We went out on a smoke report on the wildland just a few weeks ago, and heck, by the time we got probably an hour and a half drive time, just because of terrain and getting back there, it was cold. So it's
Yeah.
trying to be prepared for all the different things that this county can throw at you.
How is it that So this, I mean, I'm just thinking like the agencies that I've volunteered with. It's hard enough to get somebody to come in the door, and now, like, what's your approach to? Because I mean, like, there's a part of me that's like, this is really cool, but I'm already in. Like, I see this as the eyes
Right.
of somebody who's been doing this for almost 25 years now, and I'm like, this is pretty neat. You have somebody who's like, hey, they walk in and they want to help the community out, and they're like, oh, become a firefighter. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Like, do you slowly ease them into this? Like, how do you? Because that's that. Like I said, that's this isn't just like structural firefighting with maybe a
Yeah.
pin job or two. You're talking a lot of disciplines that you have to come up to speed with.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the excitement, though,
Mm-hmm.
is you're going to learn a ton of stuff from a lot of different viewpoints. Whether we got this guy who works in a body shop and really knows structure of cars training you in our extrication night. Um, when we're doing our EMS trainings, we send a lot of guys, go off and get their first responder EMTs. We have a different level of EMS service. The golden hour here might be shot by the time you get on scene.
Right.
So it's really a different level. So I think the best way that we attack that is to create excitement. And that's done two ways. Since we're volunteers, and really that saves the taxpayers of the district and city a ton of money.
Yeah.
We have taken the track that, hey, work with us to get us good equipment. Okay, it's that capital investment. So we have a really, really good set of apparatus on our bay floor. We keep our guys in really good gear. So it's making sure that they're taken care of that way. We put them in good trucks, and then we give them opportunities to train really well. We always send a handful to FDIC. We always try and bring in outside trainers to our facility. And if you've seen that facility that's online for our smaller department, it's an exceptional facility to the point where we started to get outside departments wanting to come in and train with us. We've got a department up the road, Crested Butte Fire Protection District, a really strong fire department. They come down and share facilities with us. It's a good opportunity for us to share ideas, listen to different instructors, which I think is very important, to bring in some outside ideas and not listen to the same people all the time.
Yeah.
But just giving those opportunities to get some trainings that maybe you wouldn't get on a department this size. And for those who are looking at it as a possible future, these are some huge, huge training opportunities for people to undertake.
Yeah. It's, that you said something about like bringing people to FDIC, but then there's also this aspect of bringing outside trainers in. And, can you just kind of touch on that? Because or expand on it just a little bit more, because I think that's something where people will look at a price tag and, like, let's just say they want Robert Lee to come in and teach them how to do social media stuff for the fire service for $2,500 plus the expenses like the airfare and the lodging and all that stuff. And they'll be like, and by the way, folks, I'm not saying hire me to come in and teach you this stuff. I got other people for that. But that's a cost. And they're like, well, I don't know if we can swing this, but like there is a value here. Can you kind of hit on that?
Oh, absolutely. There's a value. So, from the top down, our chiefs and assistant chiefs, and I'm going to start here, is we have some really good training people within our department. Our assistant chief, Tom McDonough, one of our captains, T. Brown, our chief, Hugo, for show. These are people who truly understand the value of that training. But we also understand that it doesn't stop right here in Gunnison. So you'll run into a dead end. Okay, we can teach the same thing year after year, and pretty soon people start tuning out. Okay, I've heard this before. So, I've been guilty of it. I'm sitting in the back of the class. It's like, my God, this is the 10th time I've heard this exact same class. So when you can bring somebody in from the outside, just the engagement and the new thoughts, ideas, and processes that we can work off of, by far exceed the cost. Okay, and we have to, there's certain people, no, we can't bring into Gunnison. But maybe we will look for an opportunity. So last year we hosted the State Firefighters Convention here. That was an institution that not too many years ago was probably on its last leg. And there within that association, some new blood, some eagerness to get new trainings in. We had 120 firefighters from around the state. We were able to bring in a number of outside firefighters to come in and put on classes, some RIT classes, some nozzle forward type stuff, just being able to enhance that. And by pairing that with, say, a state training, well, now we can afford this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just us that benefited, it's other departments. And so now we can go to each other's facilities next year and expand on what we learned. So it's a huge benefit, and we just happen to parlay that into something that was a good value for the event and extremely good value for what we were able to get out of it. So kind of doing those kind of things is thinking outside of the box. Can I create an event to bring in an extrication guru to come in and talk about something maybe we couldn't do. But if I get 4 or 5 counties, and a lot of times, to be honest, if you haven't been to Gunnison, it's a gorgeous recreational area in the mountains of Colorado. So in the summertime, in June, when it's getting way too hot to be where they come from, sometimes that's negotiable as to what it takes to get them to come out here.
Yeah.
Heck, we'll set guys up to go play golf or go fly fishing or go whitewater rafting or something like that, and being able to use some of the assets that your community can offer can be part of the deal. So it helps us to kind of bring people in. And be honest, we've had a couple of our trainers on this last summer's training set that they're already calling, hey, you guys need me back next year? I'd sure like to come back to Gunnison.
Well, that's a win.
Yeah, well, it's a cool place to be, but I think one of the things that they also got out of it was their time was not wasted. Okay,
Right.
The guys really engaged the training here. The gals come along and really put forth heart, and it's really easy to get people to come back when they can have a good time themselves putting on the training.
You have this active part in Gunnison as a firefighter. What ranks have you have you moved up and down the ranks before?
Yeah, and being in this type of thing, pretty much everything except chief of department.
Okay.
I've been assistant chief. I've done the captain's roles. Spent quite a bit of time, as a company lieutenant. And right now, unfortunately, with a lot of my extra travel, I can't commit to that, but I can certainly pick up calls and runs when I'm at home.
Yeah.
And hopefully still be a benefit.
Well, so here's this other hat you wear. You're this regional sales manager for the Western region for Rosenbauer. These two worlds kind of collide, and I would imagine it's in a beneficial way for the department and the community. Or do you keep a separation of church and state? I can tell you from looking at the website and the apparatus purchases, it doesn't look like that. But yeah.
Yeah, the cool thing, those apparatus purchases are actually what got me into here. It was being on the purchasing committees. Okay. Mm-hmm. So being on the purchasing committees, looking at the different manufacturers, trying to figure out what suited us, just as everybody else does. And it happened to be that line worked really well for us. Being able to do our Type 1 rear mount 4-wheel drive engine made sense for an area with an urban interface. Sometimes you need to set that portable at the back of the truck because you're on the 2-track. You don't have room for that portable tank. Our Timberwolf, of course, that urban interface, Type 1, Type 3 rig. And not only beneficial for just the wildland aspect, but we got a lot of places that you have to negotiate the snow to get to, so having that maneuverable 4-wheel drive type setup. And then our T-Rex, our aerial, that got me to the point where I was able to meet and get to know the guys in the aerial group with Rosenbauer. And just through conversation and maybe me pestering them, hey, you need a guy. I was offered a position as the aerial specialist for a few years. So I traveled the country, showing off our aerial wares. And the cool thing about that was I was able to have a lot of conversations with truck companies.
Yeah.
And I brought a lot of that home. It was a really neat way to bring information back to my department that would benefit us just from what I learned. I wish I could have done that 30 years ago.
Yeah, I can imagine. Ernie, and over the years, I've gotten to meet a couple different aerial specialists and kind of just put together what that position is, because I think it's sometimes, in my opinion, I think it gets lost because sometimes maybe if I'm getting an apparatus committee, I'm going to spec some kind of aerial, and I call a manufacturer, the salespeople show up from the local dealership, and then there's this guy who's an aerial specialist. And I'm just like, oh, great. They bought another salesman with me or, for this to add another talking head. But there's there is huge value in that. And I never really fully understood the value of the aerial specialist until National Fire Radio. So kind of, if you don't mind diving into that, because I feel
Oh,
like it's missed sometimes.
no, I'd love to dive into that. That's kind of one of the things that you know, coming from purchasing that aerial and trying to figure out what were we really looking for. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty easy to just go, let's get one of the last ones. But what's changed in the industry, and I think what we became was, you know, sales is part of it for sure, but we were more of the dealer support. So we are the ones that, I mean, know the nuts and the bolts, being able to understand it operationally. And I think that's one of the things that I would work to pride myself on within that position was going in, looking at the district with that department who's looking for their next apparatus, sometimes their first, and truly helping them to understand, you know, how this is going to work in the department and try and fit that right apparatus in there. Because I can stick whatever, you know, sticking on the stock list into a department pretty easy. But it's being able to walk away from, you know, that demonstration and having them truly understand the operational capacity, the effectiveness, how it's going to work in their district.
Mm-hmm.
Um, was the truck that I brought to their town the right truck?
Yeah.
You know, but I could at least show them that the primary functions and features and operations were going to be the same across our, believe it or not, 32 aerial apparatus line, and just trying to make that fit and working with the sales guy to make sure that that's the one. You know, we go into a department and, you know, they're doing their due diligence as they
Yeah.
should. And so they're talking with different manufacturers, and it's up to me just to make sure that they understand our product. What
Well,
value does it bring to the table?
do you think there's let's maybe we'll use the term pitfall because I don't know what else other vocabulary word to throw in there, but like where what are some of the pitfalls that were like like I said I do this apparatus committee and you and my local dealer show up. What are the things that I should be focusing the conversation with the aerial specialist? Like what, because I feel like that's like I said, that part maybe, and unless you think that this isn't, you know,
No, no, I think, you know, that's my job. I appreciate you asking, and it's something that a department, and I'm going to come at this kind of at a neutral angle,
yeah,
a department should look at. They should look at, you know, it's the bare minimums that we need to start with, and it's amazing how sometimes these get missed. How long is your bay that you're going to put it in? Will it fit? Understanding things like turn radius. How can you get this around your town? You know, if you are in your first apparatus purchase, or maybe you're moving from a 78 to a platform, so you're going from a short stick to a bigger platform, understanding the maneuverability. And I think one of the big things that gets missed is understanding, you know, turn radius of single axles versus tandems. And you'd be surprised if you really look at it. A lot of times, single axles will have a bigger turn radius just because they're a longer wheelbase than your tandems. So there's misconceptions that get out there, and so it's really nice to be able to have a truck come in where we actually allow their engineers, like, hey, let's get in the driver's seat and let's go drive to your concerning areas. And I think that's very important to do, especially if you're changing types, is get the truck in. Go look at it. If you can't look at it operationally, then if you're buying off of a brochure or a picture on a website, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Um, you know, I encourage people, hey, on our stick, stretch that thing out and let's put it at a 45-degree angle and let's belt up and climb out to the tip. I want you to understand the difference in construction of aerials and understand, you know, I don't want you to learn the first time that you're on a burner trying to get on the roof that this isn't as stable as you thought it was going to be.
Right.
Yeah. So we really try as aerial specialists is to get a true engagement so they can truly see the operation. Let's go land some roofs in your area that you're concerned with. Let's take it down to that area that's super tight, and let me show you how short jacking without safety overrides really works and how much time that'll save you. And let's look at it in that phase. You know, if Aunt Nellie's hanging out the window, 30 seconds can be a big deal. So we try and go in from that aspect of just without having a true fire, put it in those type of reality type situations and let you get a good feel of it. We let you fly it. Let's take control here and let you really, really understand what we can offer you.
I think it's something I said to someone who was going into in the course of National Fire Radio. Somebody had reached out and said, like, hey, we're going to do an aerial for the first time. You know, is there anything that we should be aware of? And I said, be wary of the salesperson who just wants you to set it up in your firehouse parking lot. Take it out in this like hit them streets of the demo truck and go to your areas of and as you put it, your concerning areas, like where your hills are, you know, where you're going to have a hard time spotting the truck because of wires and overhead obstructions versus cars. And, you know, it's like, and it was interesting to go out and some of these, you know, going through this process, and it took us a couple of years, but seeing some of the different manufacturers and then being like, no, we shouldn't, like, there's no reason to do that. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Maybe there is, like, you know, and I always love talking to you guys because, you know, I've gotten to know Greg really well. I've gotten to know when he used to work for KME, Mike Caesar. And then, oh crap, his name's on the tip of my tongue, from Pierce. And he's in our Northeast region here. It's going to drive me nuts. But like every one of them, and there was another one from you, like every one of them has had this plethora of knowledge. And I've always hoped that, like, just, you know, we're going to go off the rails here for a second, but I always hoped that I could get like 4 aerial specialists from 4 different manufacturers in the same room to talk about speccing out that aerial truck and going through the differences between the straight stick, the mid-mount tower, mid-mount, you know, stick, rear mount tower, and just kind of like setting the stage for expectations, because so many times people have, like, you hit on it before. You said if you're looking at it as a video or a brochure and that's how you're picking your truck, like, you know, and like I said, that was just something that I wanted to, I'm trying to work on.
You do that, you're going to have some surprises. And I think if you got different aerial specialists from different manufacturers in one room, you're probably going to get one thing. Yeah, we're all going to kind of highlight what we do a little bit better than the other one, and everybody has their specialties. I think, end of the day, these guys just want a department to have something that's going to do the job, do it as safe as possible, and, you know, at heart, that's what we do.
Yes.
It's really cool when I can impress upon you what my truck can do, but at the end of the day, you know, I spent the last couple of years carrying honor flags for fallen firefighters as I've been traveling around and getting them signed and taking them to families. So that whole everybody goes home is extremely important to me. So I think that's the big thing, and that's one of the neatest things and the most satisfying things about doing this, is just making sure that we give people great tools for that moment. Like you said, you know, well, maybe we don't need this, but did we think of that once in a career call? Are we set up to be successful for that? Because if we are, everything behind it falls into place. Yeah.
What's you said, you know, you carry these honor flags. Kind of go into that a little bit, because I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, I was involved with a group that I've since parted with, but we did some really good things where we would set up for Ben Lauren was one of the first firefighters who was killed in the line of duty in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I happened to was looking for something that I could do as I was traveling around. And there was a group putting out flags to honor fallen heroes, not necessarily was law enforcement, military. Of course, I'm on the fire side, so I started taking a red line flag around with me. So as I'd get done with the demo, we'd go into the station around the kitchen table to chat for a few minutes, and firefighters, I'd tell them the story of the fallen firefighter. And, the on duty group would sign the flag, and eventually I would have a full flag full of signatures with a lot of brotherly love. And we
How he's flipped.
Yeah, so at the end, take that to the family. All the firefighters that I did were actually younger firefighters, single gentlemen who, so it would be the actual moms and dads. So we'd take those home, and along the way they would follow the flag as it was traveling the country, and they got to see a little love from every department. And I think it kind of, I saw it in firefighters as we were talking about the story, that maybe we gave them a moment just to realize that it's a dangerous thing we do. Maybe we can do something a little safer next go and make sure that we come home. So I think it had a twofold purpose for them. I'm getting ready to restart this group. Rosenbauer's gonna, they both feet jumped in, says, yes, we'll do this with you. I've got a number of salesmen with the different dealerships that want to jump on board as well. So hopefully here in the near future, you'll get to see that, I thought I knew the brotherhood and what it was all about when I carried these flags around. It really hit home as to what we are as just this big family that bickers quite a bit, but at the end of the day, man, we will stand up for each other and families. And it was probably one of the neatest things I've done in my 30 years.
Yeah, and I think it's, and I just know from various, like doing fire instructor too, recently, one of the things that the New York State does is they make you do a final presentation on a NIOSH report. And, so I'm like, all right, cool. And I got this NIOSH report that actually worked out with my side business. But it, like, you really, like, just by doing that report, you get vested into who this person was, because ultimately you're reading the obituary, you're reading who they are, you're watching videos, and you're putting together a PowerPoint. And that was only for like a 24, 48-hour period that I had to do that. But I still, it's still there. So like, you're carrying a flag around the country, like that's like, you're really like, every time somebody signs, every time somebody interacts with you, and that it's adding on to that sacrifice, or I would imagine.
It's, like I said, it was powerful.
Yeah.
It was, I'm hoping, therapeutic for the families. When they saw the picture of whatever department, and some of these went from, I not only did the West region when I was doing this thing, I'd had flags signed in Alaska, Hawaii, and New York City, Jacksonville, Florida. They went everywhere. And, I think sometimes the families probably get those flags out and go through them, because they were always signed with, name and usually station.
Yeah.
And they just got to see that, there was a lot of love, and hopefully there was a lot of education that comes out of it.
Well, we'd say like never forget, but the reality is time passes and we don't forget. But it's just, it's good to know that, because like even with I wrote down Benjamin Lauren here, and I'm gonna be reading his NIOSH report when we're done with this. Like, I won't go to bed until I read it. So like, just in that act alone. Like we've gotten one more person, and then I know who I am, so it's going to come back to work with me, and we're going to talk about it at work. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's Ernie. That's I didn't, you got me on that one. I didn't think that was coming. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for
Yes.
getting this. When this program starts up with, once you get it launched off with Rosenbauer, let me know, because we'll do what we
Yeah.
can to help out. So
I would love to. I think it was just a really neat program. We'll give it some gusto because yeah, I get a lot of questions around the sales group. Hey, are you still doing that? I've got somebody in mind, and I think that's just a beautiful thing, just to keep that thing going, and that's a big part of I think this whole conversation we're having today is just remembering um, that we stand on the shoulders of some pretty great people, and being able to remember, honor, respect that, um, and I think the best thing that we could do is just be great firefighters moving forward, to keep those memories alive. And we started out when I started out as a young kid. I had some really awesome mentors. Uh, some have passed, and others I still get to see, and it's just always trying to do that right, by passing things along. By if I'm down at the station, I can't forget that I still need to roll hose at the end of the call. And it's just making sure that we invest heavily into people who are coming up now, because to be honest, we're developing a different firefighter than we were a few years ago. And I think it behooves us to really invest a lot of that experience and time. And this job that I have now, extremely blessed to be able to do it and to be able to bring things home to my department. Before I was, my early 20s, I don't know if I did much more than look at the neat red truck going down the street making all the noise. But once I got involved, it's so much a part of my bloodstream. It's pretty insane. When I'm out on the road, I'll probably joke that I spend more time in a Rosenbauer seat than anything else. I got after the aerial thing. You get used to that hands-on and being in the departments. I jumped at the chance to drive around in our RTX for a couple months, which is, just understanding and seeing changes in tradition, and being able to look forward, whatever that may be. It's
right.
a really neat opportunity. So yeah, cool stuff that's out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's incredible what this fire service has done for me personally, and for everybody that kind of interacts with it. And I sometimes I say, like, hey, it's you get, when guys are getting discouraged, like, you get what you put into it, but it's also kind of remember that. And you said we stand on the shoulders of some pretty good people, and you talked about mentorship. Who are some of the people that you're standing on their shoulders now? That's like, when you think back, you're 30 years in this.
If I look right now, I had my first lieutenant, B. Badamich. In fact, it was really neat. A couple years ago, we were on a T-bone out at an intersection. I look over on the curb, and there he stands. He happened to come back to town. He retired and moved to someplace warmer at the time, and it was just really neat to walk over and be able to chat with him. Jim Miles, who was our chief here for a number of years, and I'd known him since before my fire service days. Just a lot of time with these people that, like you talk about, you're sitting down at the firehouse after a call for 2 hours, just kind of, and it's not just fire stuff. You have an
Right.
opportunity to just grow as a person.
Yeah.
There's a lot of experience just in life, and I think that was a huge part that the firehouse brought to my world. Was just, maybe you got to learn through other people's mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and just general general life, and it helps you to be a better firefighter. I think it helps you to be more compassionate as a person. So just having those relationships with those type of people that brought you in. Bud Harris was a big one. He was one of the first ones that I started hearing the Gunnison fire stories from. Actually worked in an underground coal mine, so he kind of had me as a captive audience during lunchtime. You can't go too far, but he would tell the
Right.
stories of the calls that they did that weekend or the night before, and when I got that first chance to kind of be on scene of that real call, it was like, wow, this is actually really neat. And then you progress to going down and getting to hang out during trainings and you I think I deviated earlier when you talked about kind of how we do it. It's we do our interview process, and we go down and we get to hang out and kind of get to know the people. We do our company dinners once a month, and just it's a good chance to sit around the table, get to know people, and then we do an academy. I don't know if you've seen the pictures of our training facility, but it's actually a pretty significant training facilities. I think one of the larger ones in the state.
Yeah.
So we go through a pretty serious training program, and then we pull in, getting our certs out of the way. When I first came on, certification books weren't going to help you, but it gave us a standard to work with instead of everybody doing their own thing. So just that growth and being able to people will leave here with a college education, probably fire to their hazmat ops and an EMT basic, and that's going to get them a long ways down the road. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of one of the things that if you have the opportunity to develop a program, we don't get the when I first came on, I think we probably had almost everybody went to 20, 25 years. It's just no longer the case. So you get that handful of people, and they're the ones that develop that training program. They're the mentors. They know how to get that long-term benefit out of maybe shorter-term personnel these days. And it's just something we had to do to adapt.
Yeah, I think the idea of a transient fire service needs to be embraced. And I certainly didn't understand it until I started volunteering in Prince George's County and realized that, this live-in program that was in these firehouses was very much, taking somebody and they were only going to have them for 2 to 4 years
Yeah,
and turning them into something, getting them that value. And like all along the way, there's mentorship with like some of the people in the bunk room who are, the sergeants and stuff like that. And like it's, and then I come back home and I see volunteer departments struggling and they're still trying to do it like it's the 1970s when we had like people beating the door down to come in, and like
right.
you hear these like old timers like, well, we had the black ball and everybody got a black marble, and if somebody put the marble down, that person didn't get voted in. And it's like, now like it's just like, and that might have been it was a different time obviously, but like now we're missing, we've got to do something differently. And it's not just the volunteer fire service, because I think that it's trickling down to the career service as well. Like the people signing up to take the civil service test, we don't have the numbers that we used to have. So
No.
it's all of us. We like, and that's what I said to somebody one day. I was like, we're in this together, whether you realize it or not. Career and
Yeah.
volunteer. And this career guy was like, no, no, no. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, look at your numbers. Look at
Yeah.
look at what's happening to the police departments and what they're hiring. Like, do you want to be them?
It's exactly. It's learning to, we've got to adapt. We've always have, be it apparatus, be it tactics. My department, we've learned to adapt and actually embrace. When I came on, we'd have never looked at that 4-year person. It's not worth the investment.
Yeah.
But I think now, the way we've structured our training around that, we're actually getting incredible firefighters in short periods of time that are excited to do the work. And so we rotate through a few more people than we used to. We've set up our training academies to accommodate that. We've just made that a part of of how we bring our firefighters up. And every once in a while, like I said, Gunnison's a beautiful place. I'm not encouraging a ton of people to move here. I like a small town. But a lot of these firefighters after college, they're like, dude, I'm staying. And so
Yeah.
you grab a couple longer term firefighters out of it that already have an incredible training base to it. So it's just kind of that punch and roll with it. And I think that investment for us in just really, really good training, exciting, bringing in new voices here and there, giving them outside opportunities to go to AutoX, over in the Denver area, go interact with other people. And, we always bring back great ideas. And then we get them to engage in the trainings, and they get to learn new skills by teaching and instructing and working towards that fire instructor certification. And so
Yeah.
it's all about giving pathways to not only ourselves, but the firefighters that are coming on board.
Yeah. I remember so when I took instructor 2, there was a big wig came down from the state to like thank us all for taking the class. And there were some members who were, from the volunteer departments. Others were like myself, were in career departments. And I asked the question in the class because, in New York State, and I don't know what it's like in Colorado, but and I don't say pushing because this is going to sound horrible if I say they're pushing 1403. But like when you look at the standard for 1403 live fire drills on its own in New York State, you have to have instructor 1, instructor 2 for live fire in charge. You have to, the 1403 live burn class. So like you're looking at a lot of, and I'm not saying that this training is not worth it. It's a lot to ask for our departments that are struggling. So I said, it's like, with all this happening, why isn't the state providing instructors like to go around and say like, all right, Hooterville Fire Department, we have 2 weeks in March of the springtime where we're going to provide you fire service instructors so you can conduct live burns and do training, and they were just like, well, no, that wouldn't be worth it. And I'm like, well, wait a second, hold on. if you don't invest in this, what do you think will happen when the people can't do the training because you've put a standard out there and we're struggling to maintain it?
Sure.
Especially in the smaller areas where it's more rural, like people could make arguments about this and that, but depending on population and everything else. But like the reality is when I'm driving across the country, I know I'm driving through areas where I'm depending on, volunteer members of the community. And I want them to have every resource available to them to be as efficient at their job because they're my only hope. They're my family's only hope. They're whoever's out there. And I could just, I said, sorry, I'm on this rant there. I'll pull myself back in, but it's just, I think it's something like it's cool that you guys are doing this with this academy and taking an outside the box approach to getting the training done and investing in these 4-year members, and you're gaining something out of it. And it's worth all the effort. It's worth the juice, is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And we've just had some really engaged individuals on our department, and it started slowly. It started us moving to actually bringing an IFSTA manual into the firehouse, and understanding that, hey, we didn't know everything, although some would have told you they did. And so I think it's opening yourself up to trying to be better. That's kind of been a thing that I've tried to work through quite a bit is, did I learn something today? Did I learn something? It's just getting out. And so we've got an incredible training cadre who, and of course, with the plethora of stuff that we do, are we going to be low angling it off the side of Monarch Pass? Are we going to haul somebody out from a plane crash in the middle of the woods? Are we doing wildland fires? We deploy. We've got groups now, so some of our college guys can pick up some good summer work deploying on one of our rigs. So it benefits us. They get some skills while they're out there doing it. The district gets to recoup some costs on some apparatus, and So we're learning that. We're doing structure
Yeah.
fires. We're doing, chimney fires. So it's a cool place. We're all over with, don't know what I'm going to do tonight when the tones go off. Is it going to be a smells and bells, or are we going to go out for, a structure fire that has trees all around? What's my interface? So it's kind of a neat thing, but it gives us a lot of cool training opportunities as well.
Yeah. And also, I noticed on the map you have the airport in Gunnison as
Yes.
well. And I
Yeah, and
assume
it's
there's some FAA people out there, like they're either the
so
staff or whatever, but you're still, if something happens, you're going.
yeah. So we've got, our ARF crews that are out there. We actually fly some significant flights, especially during ski season. On a Saturday, we may roll 6 or 7 737s, from all over the country to come in for skiing up in Crested Butte. So, it's those interactions with them, but knowing that we are full on going at the same time that they're going. They don't have a huge airport staff, so they're going to roll out in their ARF truck, and we're going to come in and lay in for supply and do all that kind of stuff that it takes. So,
Yeah. When I shouldn't say this, when somebody asks you about Gunnison, what is it that comes to mind as far as like the pride and everything? Like how would you describe?
I think it's the sheer fact that we click. I don't know how to make that make sense, but when I jump on a rig and, you know, here if I haven't been a line officer, I've been a truck engineer. So when you jump on board, because of the training, because of the repetition, we click, we mesh, okay? And it's not like I work with the same crew every time. Every call, depending on people's work schedules and how things are going that day and being off for Christmas or whatever, um, I may have 3 calls that day and I have a different crew every time. But we click. And
Yeah.
that only comes from spending time at the training ground, spending time reefing hose on the trucks. Um, it's amazing as much time as we train, we hang out at the firehouse quite a bit
Yeah.
together as well. And I think that's just having that family and brotherhood and probably spending more time than we should together and just you got to enjoy the people. You got to know that they've had the training so that you're comfortable going in any situation with them. And I think that's the key, and that comes from training. That spend a lot of time together at the training ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it builds camaraderie. Ultimately, that's the thing that I think there's a lot of times where I've seen training become a negative, but like it really, like when when you're doing good quality training,
Yeah.
you're getting that camaraderie, and there's nothing that beats that.
Keep it quality, keep it fresh. Um, it's it's difficult sometimes to make that all happen. You got to work at it for sure, but having a plan, and getting that input from everybody and get everybody involved. We've had firefighters that may for work and whatever reasons just happen to miss
Hmm.
all the calls. But doggone it, they're down there working their asses off during training and making sure that their skill sets are sharp so that when they are on the truck, they fall into place
Yeah.
and it works. And yeah, you don't realize, I think in the past there were always all the different fraternal groups and things like that, so you could always have some sort of a brotherhood. That doesn't exist so much anymore. And so I think that's something that we can look at as an industry, is if we're having trouble, create that atmosphere. Give people that thing that they're looking for.
Yeah.
They just don't know it's missing from their lives. But if you can give them that thing that helps them become a better person. I think that's one of the keys, and going home at the end of the day, having accomplished something, is incredibly important to the human spirit, and a lot of us don't go home with that anymore.
Yeah.
So let's provide it. Let's
Yes.
incorporate that into our firehouse and our training, and guess what? The rest will follow.
Heck yeah, man, that's awesome. Ernie, we've been going on for almost an hour here. Where can we got to wrap up but
Yeah,
where can people find you?
gotcha. Well, I'm on, of course, LinkedIn, Ernie Young. Um, if anybody wanted to reach out, I'm also Young at rosenbaueramerica.com.
All right. And then do you have any other events or anything coming up? Anything you need to plug?
Boy, what do we got going on? I'm going to be up in, it's like I'm on tour here. I'm going to be up in Vancouver, Canada, beginning of actually December 4th. We're unveiling Vancouver's RTX engine. It's the first all-electric drive engine in Canada. So that's coming offline here pretty quick. And yeah, then I've got just a couple. I still like to engage with when I was an aerial guy and we sold a department a truck. I always like to get out and make sure that I can help, put it into service with some operationals, trainings, and stuff like that. So I still get my hands dirty once in a while out in the road, but those are the big things for now. You will be able to find me at FDIC like always, which really isn't that far off when we look at it. So
No.
definitely come and visit. We've got a great lineup this year, so it'd be really neat to see everybody.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the ladder truck from Fairview. So
I got you. Yeah, I bet.
now, and I one of the I'm running out of time here, but one of these days I'm going to have to because I did see a picture of you with your congresswoman in the bucket of the T-Rex.
Oh yeah, yes.
So
Yes.
I got to get that story from you one day because that was pretty cool. So
yeah, let's chat again. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. All right, everybody. This is Rob, National Fire Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Frontline Mindset, new podcast. First guest, Ernie Young, Gunnison Fire, Rosenbauer Fire Apparatus. The two worlds are colliding here, and it was an excellent collision to be part of. So, Ernie, thank you so much for sitting down and having the conversation with me tonight. This is awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Rob.
Hang out for a minute here, and we'll see everybody on the flip side.
National Fire Radio.